All right, baby. Today, I'm excited where I'm taking you.
I am excited too because I am ready to hit the road.
Yeah, very, very much ready. So we're going to take you down to the most visited national park in the entire national park system.
And it's one of our favorite national parks as well.
That's right. We're going to go down to what used to be Cherokee Nation, and it used to be called Place of Blue Smoke.
Ooh, that makes a whole lot of sense for this place.
Where are we taking everybody to?
We're going to go to Smoky National Park. I messed that up.
Put your seatbelts on.
Here we go.
This is RV Destinations Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the RV Destinations Podcast. I am Randy Beheimer, president of RV Destinations Magazine, here with my lovely wife and the editor-in-chief of RV Destinations Magazine, Caly Beheimer. Say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. And you're really letting us roll with that intro.
I'm really let us roll with that intro.
Okay, well, I'm glad that everybody will forgive me and give me some grace because I just lost my train of thought on that intro.
Anyway, we're real excited to be here, and we got a special guest on the show. So without further ado, do you want to introduce our guests, baby?
I do. So on the line with us, we have Dana Soehn, and she is the president and CEO of Friends of the Smokies. Hi, Dana. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I love your intro because it gives me a chance to talk about why our Great Smoky Mountains are not the so-so Smoky Mountains or the good Smoky Mountains. They truly are the Great Smoky Mountains.
They are. All of a sudden, we have been there so many times, Dana. I mean, so many times in our lives. And all of a sudden, my mind blanked and I'm like, oh, what's the name of it? I couldn't remember.
And normally I'm the one that's messing up, and she's usually always rock solid. So I got to mark this day down on my calendar as the day my wife messed up.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, welcome to the show. We're glad you're joining us here. And maybe the appropriate place to start is maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, and then maybe go into Friends of the Smoky and kind of what your mission is and what you're trying to achieve there.
We're back. Well, I have been enthralled with the Great Smoky Mountains now for 35 years. I came out here, kid from Missouri. I was 19 years old, and it was for my college internship, supposed to be a 3 to 6 month internship that most college kids do. I was a biology major, and I came out to Great Smoky Mountains National Park for my internship with the National Park Service. And that was in 1989, and I never went back home.
That's awesome.
So I fell in love with these mountains, as many, many people do in America's most visited national park. I ended up transferring to the University of Tennessee, where I ended up graduating. But I had a 34-year career working for the National Park Service in Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which is a little unusual. Most National Park Service employees like to hop around and, as you do in your RVs, and explore the world as a part of their National Park Service career. But I found my park.
That's awesome, and I get it. The Great Smoky Mountain National Park is personally one of my favorites, and I'm not just saying that because you're on the line with us, but it is because it's been in our backyard. Growing up. It's a location that, I've gone to prior to being with Randy at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, every other year. And then since we've been together, and what I love is every time we've gone, we've had a completely different experience there. And that's what I love about Great Smoky Mountain National Park, because it's just such a cool park. It really, really is a cool park.
Yep. That's right.
I transitioned 2 years ago. I retired from the National Park Service and was able to now serve supporting this park in a whole new way. And now I lead the philanthropic partner to raise money, to raise funds and friends for Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So I'm continuing on my mission to create people who love the Smokies like you all do. And hopefully that leads to care and stewardship.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us some about the Friends of Smokies and that philanthropic effort that you are making. How does that relationship work between the park and your organization?
Well, Congress long ago recognized that the popularity of national parks was far exceeding the ability to provide budget that it takes to provide for services for the number of people that flocked to national parks. When Great Smoky Mountains National Park was created in 1934, within just 2 years, it already became the most visited national park. I mean, because of its accessibility in the east, people can come, and they can come more than just once a year. They can come every season because it is accessible within a day's drive to about 2/3 of the U.S. population. So with that number of people coming to your national park, that's a lot of feet on trails. It's a lot of toilets flushing. There's a lot that it takes to be able to provide services and also take care of your park. And federal budgets just simply cannot keep up with that kind of a demand. So about 30 years ago, the National Park Service created an opportunity, a formal opportunity for nonprofits to provide philanthropic support. So most national parks have a friends group or a conservancy group that helps support them. And here in the Smokies, our organization was formed 32 years ago. And since that time, we've raised more than $100 million in support for our park.
Wow,
that's
that is
incredible.
impressive.
So every year we fund about $4 million worth of projects. Our national park gets about $20 million in federal funds to support it. So it's a significant part of what they rely on to be able to take care of the treasures in our park.
Yeah, I was reading on your website that one of your first project was rebuilding one of the fire towers, I believe. Is you want to tell us a little bit about that? Maybe go into that?
So one of the really unique things in our national parks across the country is that those early fire towers that were some of the first posts where the early rangers were at to try to protect national parks, especially early on when there weren't a lot of people in them. And there's some of the fire towers in our park are so iconic, but there's just a few of them really left, and they're historic sites now. And one of the most stunning fire towers anywhere, and if you've been to national park fire towers or National Forest Service fire towers across the U.S., you know how special they can be. But one of the most special ones is found in our national park, Mount Cameron, and it's not for the weak. It's a hardy hike up to it. The closest way to get there is a 6-mile hike up
straight up
to get to it. It's on the eastern end of the park, and when you get to this area, it's almost like you have landed yourself in Acadia. It's just like these big boulder stones, and with the smoke, you talked about the blue smoke, the Smokies coming in, and it's a 360 fire tower, but it's perched on the top of these stones, and it's just really stunning. And it had fallen into disrepair, and it's one of the most unique, stunning fire towers really left in the nation. And so one of our founding board members hiked up there, saw it in disrepair, came back down, talked to the superintendent and said, "What can we do? Can we send some guys up there, some paint and some hammers and nails?" And he said, "You know what? Really what I need is long-term support to make sure that all the other treasures in this park that are also falling into disrepair, that we can keep up with it." And so that was the very first project that we funded, was the restoration of the Mount Cameron Fire Tower, and everyone should go.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Why don't you tell us, for any kind of first-time visitors, are there any first-time visitors to Smoky Mountains anymore?
I think there's like maybe 2 or 3 left.
I don't think I've ever talked to somebody that says, "No, I've never been to the Smoky Mountains."
Unless
maybe
they
out
are
west.
way out west.
Yeah, maybe out west. But,
and have never ventured east,
yeah,
ever.
since you've spent you worked for the national park for over 30 years, and now you're with friends with the Smokies. Maybe tell us a little bit of some of the must-see highlights in the park that you think anybody that's coming there for the first time should definitely take in.
Well, the Smokies is a very user-friendly park, and I think that's another thing that leads to its popularity, because it was thoughtfully designed with beautiful scenic roads, with lots of pull-offs and lots of vistas that provide this incredible experience for a national park tour that you can do really entirely by car if you choose to. So there's 384 miles of scenic roadways. Some of those are paved. More than half of them are paved, but then a lot of them, are the kind of two-way gravel roads. Some of them, a couple of one-way roads. But it lets you really almost have a trail-like experience on a few of them. But it's an incredible way to experience it for everybody in your group. But you can also hike over 850 miles of trails. It's 500,000 acre park. And you can hike and backpack for days and not see a soul if you choose to do that. And having a wilderness-like experience in the East is pretty amazing for people who can't make that trip out to a Yellowstone or a Yosemite out west. Right here in the East, you can disconnect and have this park to yourself if you choose to go to some of those locations.
Yeah, and I think that's what I've always loved about the Great Smoky Mountain National Park is that you can have such a very different experience there every time we've gone, and we've done just the driving trip through the mountains, which is epic and incredible and beautiful. And I love that there are so many pull-offs because there's so much to see and experience and look at that you have that opportunity to pull over and check that out.
We learned the hard way. We just got back from Scotland just a few weeks ago, and there was all this beautiful landscape and nowhere to pull off. No pull-offs at all to take pictures.
Scotland.
And it was like, come on. Us Americans, we're used to all the pull-offs in the national parks and berms on the road. There's
no berms
nothing.
there either. Scotland, you need to up your game. That's all I have to say.
but we very much appreciate it. And going back to the hikes, one of my favorite hikes there, and I'm assuming it's a pretty popular hike, is the Abrams Falls hike.
Mm-hmm.
We just absolutely love the Abrams Falls out there on, what's the road out there?
Cades Cove.
Cades Cove, that's right. So I'm sure that's a pretty popular thing. What's one of your favorite hikes in the park?
Well, Abrams Falls is certainly up there. It is one of the most popular hikes. So in these popular hikes, those are the ones that you really do have to plan ahead because there's limited parking at some of those trailheads. And when you're in the nation's most visited national park and you come in July or you come in October, those are things to be kind of cognizant of. But beautiful, stunning waterfall at the end of Abrams Falls. I love hiking out of the Cosby area. And it's one of the places that's a little off the beaten path. It's a great campground. Now, you can't take large RVs there. In fact, I think that the length limit is under 30 feet RVs, something like that. So it's a little bit more wildernessy type experience. But some of the best hiking, I think, in the park is out of the Cosby area, and including the hike to the Mount Cameron Fire Tower, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah, we'll have to put that on our list.
Yeah.
We have not done that, but most of the RVers that are listening to the show here, most of them park their RV and have a car. Like we pull a car behind our motorhome, and we use that to go into the national parks. Maybe some of the vans and some of the Class Cs might be driving through the park, but usually not.
Or even staying within the park.
Right.
We've stayed within the confines of the park when we had our little teardrop.
Yeah, what was that small campground? Do you remember what that was?
Like Jacobs Creek, something like that, where all the old homes are.
Yeah, in Elkmont.
Elkmont, that's it.
Yes,
Yeah,
that was it.
That
was neat.
Now we just had a small teardrop camper. Basically, we were pulling around a
mattress on wheels.
And we got up into that park and just had there was no shower facilities. That was the only downside, but we were nestled into nature, and it was a wonderful, wonderful place. And Elkmont is really cool to go through all those buildings.
Neat. It is so neat to see that. So what is the story behind Elkmont?
Well, Elkmont is a really special community. I'll back up just a minute to say that when the park was created, again in the 30s, there were about 1,200 landowners at that time. And so when the National Park Service acquired the lands, the states of Tennessee and North Carolina, through private citizens and philanthropy, raised the money to purchase the lands. And so when those lands were purchased, then they came with all these homesteads.
Oh.
And so some people dismantled their cabins and took them with them when they left the national park, but some of them were left behind, many of them. And so the National Park Service at that time sent experts through there and decided to save about 100 historic structures that they felt like told the story of early Appalachian mountain settlement. And so there are barns, there are cabins, there are apple barns and blacksmith shops and things that were reminiscent of the community. There's even a couple of large grist mills that are preserved in the national park, all from that era of like the 1800s into the early 1900s. And so at that time, those were the ones that were preserved to take care of, and they're found scattered across the park. At that same time, in the early 1920s, when this park was being formed, there was this burst of, I say, early tourism. And one of those places was Elkmont. And so there were these little cottages that had been built following the landowner in that area was a logging company that owned most of that land, about 80,000 acres in the Elkmont area. And so in that old logging town, they started building these small little cottages that became retreats for people that lived in places like Knoxville and Atlanta and the big cities. And so they would come up on the weekends, riding the same train that had taken the logs out. They would use that same train to bring them in for a weekend or even a whole summer. And so the people that had some of those small little cottages, there were about 80 of them altogether, they had leases that allowed them to continue staying in those little cottages until 1991.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But at that time, the original plan had always been that those little cottages would be removed. Because again, when the park was created, they weren't historic at that time. But now in 1991, they're feeling very historic and nostalgic as, people have been coming up there. And so after a long process of determining which ones to save, because simply could not save all of them, it would have doubled the inventory of the park's historic structures, 19 of them were saved. And so you have 17 cottages that were saved to tell that story of early tourism in this area. And then a clubhouse that served them, the Appalachian Clubhouse. And then a little bit grander home on what is called Millionaires Row, which is in that Elkmont area. But we finally just restored all 19 of them, and that came through Friends of the Smokies donation dollars that helped fund that restoration. And it was just finally completed last year.
Wow.
Now we'll have to get back out there. We haven't been there in a while.
And the last time we were there, the homes were being restored. There was a lot of restoration going on because we had been there many, many years ago, probably back in 2012. And there wasn't any restoration going on. And then we visited the area again, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and they were being restored. So that's really exciting that they're finally restored because they're so sweet. I mean, I don't even know how to explain it other than they're so sweet. They're so precious.
It's just really cool to walk because if I remember right, there's several of them that were on the creek right there that kind of you walked out and wasn't there like even a little deck that you could go out and look down on the well, they ran along the. Am I thinking right? Am I thinking right,
Yes.
Dana, or am I wrong?
One of the most special ones is the one you're probably thinking of, the Spence Cabin, and you can rent the Spence Cabin for day use for a special event, a party, a wedding, and you can walk out onto the river where there's a little porch area, and it's really, really beautiful.
Gotcha.
And then a question for you. This is total segue. The train. I feel like that there's an urban legend that there's a train engine that kind of rolled down the side of one of the mountains and it just kind of lays there. Is that true, or is that an urban legend?
So many stories, hard stories, really. I mean, the logging industry was probably one of those jobs that had the most amount of injury and deaths associated. It was very dangerous. If you look at how they were logging in those early days, and they didn't have OSHA and a lot of the safety regulations that we certainly have in place now. But one of the most dangerous things was hauling those logs out on those steep slopes. They had special train engines that were all geared, kind of 4-wheel drive train, Shay engines that would do that work, but it was still incredibly dangerous. And so there's lots of stories about some pretty traumatic train wrecks, and one of them was right there in Elkmont.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
song written about it, the Daddy Bryson train wreck. And there are pieces of old train engines that you can find in the park in some places, yeah, where it's an entire engine.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
what we went searching. Must have looked in the wrong place because we never discovered it. But we heard there was an engine somewhere, and we went looking for it, but didn't
Mhm.
find it. But so we only have a handful of minutes left here. So I wanted to get an idea. Are there any hidden gems or places that a lot of tourists just don't know about in the park that you think's worthy to go take a look at? Whether it be a hike, whether it be a drive, whether it be whatever it be.
Well, especially if you want to avoid some of those really congested areas, which I think helps lead people toward a more enjoyable experience, at least for me anyway, when I'm traveling to a park. So I would invite people to think about there's a section of the park called the Foothills Parkway. It's a beautiful scenic drive on the Tennessee side of the park, and a section of it that was just completed about 8 years ago connects a 17-mile section of roadway between Wares Valley and Walland, and it's connected by a series of 10 bridges. And it's a stunning drive that provides you this overview and scenery of the highest peaks of the national park. And a lot of people don't know about it. And it's a beautiful drive that then you could take around to go into some of the lesser visited places in the park, like Abrams Creek, and then over into the North Carolina side of the park, where you can take a boat shuttle and go across to a quarter of the national park that's only accessible if you cross over Fontana Lake on the North Carolina side. So if
Oh,
you really
cool.
want to go to what Forrest Kephart, an author that wrote about the park, and he called it the back of beyond. If you really want to have a unique experience, I would encourage you to take that boat shuttle and spend the day over at a place called Hazel Creek.
Oh, I'm writing
Yeah,
this
I've
down
never
for
heard that.
me
That's
either.
that truly is a hidden gem because we've been there a lot, and I've
Yeah,
never
so
heard of that.
Hazel Creek.
So we have taken that drive. We know exactly where you're talking about. And that was an
Mhm.
amazing drive, and I think we were like there was maybe 4 or 5 cars we passed over the whole 17-mile stretch. And
Yeah.
I remember there was one point that we're going up an elevation where we couldn't even see the road because it goes up such
And
a
it just
high
felt like you were
elevation.
literally driving into the heavens.
Into the clouds. In fact, we featured that road in one of our issues many issues ago in the magazine. But well, that's incredible. So Smoky Mountains, if you haven't been there, you obviously got to put that on your list. It's pretty amazing hiking, pretty amazing drives. If you're not a hiker, the drives are gorgeous. There's a lot to do, in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, of course, which we're not going to be touching this time. But why don't you tell us a little bit about how our listeners and people that are watching us on YouTube can make donations to your organization, or what's a good way to get involved?
I would say protecting this incredible visitor opportunity. And also, we've talked about it being America's most visited national park. It's also America's most biodiverse national park. Mm-hmm. So taking a drive through the Smokies is like you've gone from Georgia to Maine and all of the different forest types. And because it's a temperate rainforest, just life thrives in the Smokies. And being able to help us protect that place, but also welcome as many visitors, takes resources. And people can make a donation to Friends of the Smokies, and those funds will go to help support the things you care about most, whether it's protecting those trail experiences, the historic structures, or the wildlife and the forests that make the Smokies such a unique place.
Gotcha. I think most of us, including myself, just think that the government provides enough money, between that and admission fees and park fees and all that, that's enough to sustain it. But it sounds clearly like that's not the case.
The historic structures crew is entirely now funded by Friends of the Smokies.
Oh, wow.
So historic treasures, those log cabins that are now some of them 200 years old, and then places like Elkmont simply would not have a crew that was dedicated to their routine maintenance that requires a lot of love and care, but also the renovations that are desperately needed because of missed maintenance. And trails like Abrams Falls that you mentioned, the most heavily used trails, simply did not get the care that they needed to be able to make sure that they stood up to the millions of people that hike on them each year. And so we fully fund a crew that's dedicated to the rehabilitation of the park's most heavily used trails. And our Trails Forever crew just completed the restoration of Abrams Falls Trail last year.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah, it's been a few
So
years.
that's the
since
kind
been
of
out.
work we support and do. But it's invite anybody to please check out our website. And also, if they are able to, go to our website and make a donation, we'll make sure it goes to meet those needs, or they can drop $1 in our donation box on a visit.
Okay. And what is that website?
It is friendsofthesmokies.org.
Okay, and we'll
Fabulous.
put it down in the notes section for the audio podcast and also the YouTube channel. And one last question. So I didn't warn you I was going to do this to you. I do this normally to all the park rangers we have on the show. So I'm gonna do it to you. You spent 30 years in the park, so if you were leaving, and I'm sorry I didn't give you any heads up, I was going to do this to you.
You did recently. You just recently retired, so she did kind of officially leave the park.
Okay, so the question goes: if you were going to leave the Smoky Mountains for the remainder of your life, whatever reason, you're not coming back, what's the last thing you're going to do there? This is a personal question. What's your favorite place that, like, I'm going to go hike Abrams Fall, or I'm going to go out and sit at this bluff or this mountaintop, or what would that be?
Well, I'm on a mission to hike all 858 miles in the national park, and I have 120 miles left.
What? Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
That's incredible.
Well, you would think after 30 years I would have finished by now. But I keep discovering my new favorite places every time I am out on a trail. But there's a little place way off the beaten track called the High Rocks. You access it off of a trail out of the Bryson City area in North Carolina, and it's one of the most stunning views, and you always have it all to yourself when you get there. And for me, being immersed in the Smokies is almost this cathedral-like feeling where you have a sense of peace that just washes over you. And I can't think of a better place to experience that than sitting on High Rocks.
Yeah, that's thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I haven't heard of that either. So
Me
we've got
either.
a lot.
I have so many notes from this conversation just for our next trip down there.
We've got a lot to explore. Well, as far as for our listeners there, as far as camping, there's campgrounds everywhere. We're not even going to touch that.
No.
I mean, you've got Gatlinburg with campgrounds, you got Pigeon Forge, you got campgrounds in the Smokies.
The Cherokee side,
right. North Carolina side,
everywhere.
Yeah, so,
and if you're looking for more information, you want to visit the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, and you want to visit, the surrounding area as well. We do have an episode 23 covers Pigeon Forge. So we do have an episode out there.
And several articles in the magazine
quite a few
as well.
articles in the magazine as well.
Dana, thank you so much for coming on the show and exploring the Smoky Mountain National Park, and then also, the things that you've got going on there with your organization. We appreciate you being on the show so much.
Appreciate it. Safe travels.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You want to take us out, babe?
Yeah, we want to, again, thank Dana so much for joining us here today. And we want to thank all of you out there for joining us in here today as well, whether you're joining us on the audio podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts or wherever you find them, or if you've joined us on the YouTube side. Hey, check us out on YouTube. We would really love to feel some of your love on that side. Please. I always like to say, if you miss us, you can just go out there and see our happy, shiny faces. So again, just thank you all out there for just everything and all of your support. We love you so much, appreciate you so much. And be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the RV Destinations podcast. Click follow on our YouTube channel. And don't forget about our website. We have a ton of great free FREE RV destination content for you out on our website, including some really delicious recipes that I've been posting as well. And that's rvdestinationsmagazine.com. And if you use the code podcast20, and that's podcast20 at checkout, you're going to save 20% off any of our subscriptions for the magazine. So yeah, that's it. So thank you all so much again. I'm
Safe
so
travels.
out of it. Safe travels, y'all.